T-Wolves rally back down 17, count them 17 in Miami for their 20th win of the season. See that? I got Wolves expert Jack Borman to help me break it all down. It's all coming up next on the Locked On Wolves postcast.
You are Locked On Wolves postcast, part of Locked On Minnesota on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
T-Wolves come from behind. They're down 17. They stun the Heat tonight in Miami, 112-108. What's happening, everyone? Back in the lab, back at it. Another T-Wolves postcast episode right here on the Locked On Sports Minnesota Network. You got myself, Luke Inman, at Luke_Spinman. That's the man, Jack Borman, on Twitter, at JRBorman13. And before we jump into all the action, quick reminder, tonight's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to PrizePicks.com/LockedOnNBA. Use code, all lowercase, LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. All right, let's just jump right into this one. Lots to cover, and I mean lots to cover. And let's break this thing down into halves. And let me just even take a step back. This was just the third game this year the Miami Heat have had Jimmy, Adebayo, and Tyler Hero. And right from the jump, Jack, that trio, man, they look like they hadn't skipped a beat. And Hero specifically, zero rust to shake off. He made his first 7 of 10 from the floor, goes into halftime with a team leading 17. Wolves go into half, down 12, Ant with 15, Cat with 12. Way too many sloppy passing, sloppy turnovers. That led to 19 points off turnovers for the Heat at halftime. And going into the locker room too, by the way, all 5 Wolves starters, they all had at least one foul as well. So why am I talking about the first half specifically? Because this was truly a tale of two halves. Let's just start with what you saw in the first 2 quarters before we dive into the rest. Walk me through it. What was your big takeaways? Because to me, Jack, I mean, Miami just seemed like they were the more physical team to start this game out.
Absolutely. That's a great way of putting it. They absolutely were the more physical team in the first half. And then, Minnesota just looked intimidated for whatever reason. Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, and Tyler Hero have played a ton of minutes together in really high leverage situations, whether it be regular season playoffs, whatever the case may be. And those guys are just really comfortable together. And they're, I think 3 of the best fitting stars that you could put around each other, and that they have such a good understanding of how, they all like to play, where they like the ball, spots they like to attack on the floor from, and just kind of how to space for each other. When Tyler Hero and Bam get going in that pick and roll like they did in the first half, it felt like when they committed to Tyler Hero, he just made the perfect little dump off pass to Bam Adebayo so he could score in the mid range. And then when they kind of sat down on Bam, Tyler Hero was wide open for these pull up mid range jump shots that he's so good at. And it's just. And then obviously just Jimmy's just a load to deal with when he's getting downhill. And so, when you let all 3 of those guys get comfortable early on in the game, and you mix that with, letting the Heat kind of speed you up offensively and, really make you feel them on the perimeter. I think they're really physical at the point of attack. When Rudy Gobert was catching the ball to initiate handoffs, Kevin Love, Bam Adebayo were all up in his face. Had some really good ball pressure on the guards. Mike Conley had 2 pretty uncharacteristic, spastic turnovers in that first quarter, and you had a 17-point deficit right away in the second quarter. As a result of a pair of pretty big threes from Duncan Robinson. So the biggest thing for me is just that sometimes the Timberwolves need to get punched in the mouth a little bit in order to really settle in and become the more physical team. And I think the first half was just an example of that I think. The Heat kind of showed them, all the ways that they needed to improve after the halftime. And it was pretty obvious, right, in where they needed to improve. Like you said, they had all those, 19 points off of 11 Timberwolves turnovers, not great. And I believe Miami was 20 of 30 on 2-point baskets. And then if you want to just look at it, strictly looking at in the paint, Miami was 18 of 26 in the paint, which is, pretty ridiculous to make 18 shots just in the paint alone in one half. So Yeah. And, like you said, the Timberwolves just kind of got bullied, and Jimmy Butler really won that Karl Anthony Towns matchup in the first half. Karl couldn't really move Jimmy, wasn't really making quick decisions, got stood up quite a few times. And the Timberwolves also, kind of struggled to get Anthony Edwards in a rhythm. And I think when that happens, sometimes they're just kind of on their heels and looking for scoring in places that they normally, don't get it or aren't looking for it initially. So yeah, all those things just kind of, I think, resulted in the Timberwolves needing a little bit of a reset after halftime. But on the bright side, it did provide some opportunity for Jaden McDaniels to get going a little bit offensively, which was nice to see, attacking Tyler Hero, in the half court, off the bounce, but also as a cutter, he had a couple of really nice cuts that that was good to see. So it wasn't all bad for the Timberwolves in that first half, I guess.
No, you're absolutely right. Good breakdown there of the first half. And again, on top of the bad passing, sloppy turnovers, and so much more frustrating too, watching them miss so many layups too, man. I don't know.
Yeah, the rolls they got were pretty
rims. Brutal. Yeah, they missed at least 5 layups in the first half, not to mention multiple shots that just seemed to go in and out too. That was frustrating. Couple sketchy calls there by the refs, which I usually don't like to bring that stuff up because you always hope that stuff evens out. But a couple bogus calls in there tonight as well that went against the T-Wolves. So to the second half we go. Wolves once again continue this third quarter domination this year. Okay, maybe not domination tonight. They get a 23-17 advantage, but they cut the lead to 6 heading into the fourth. Nah with the big 3 and D. Ant with 7 more points in the third quarter. And with 7 minutes left in the fourth, Mike Conley hits his third 3 to give them their first lead since it was 4-2 at the beginning of the first quarter. And remember, they were down again as much as 17 points. And then they went on that 10-1 run early fourth quarter. No Cat, no Ant on the court as well. I'll just let you take it from here. I've kind of teed you up here and set the stage. What'd the Wolves do to cap off this amazing comeback tonight, those final 6-7 minutes or so, and pull it off 112-108?
Yeah, I think they really just took it upon themselves to be the more physical team, right? And I think that when you see a team like Miami that obviously wants to do most of their work in the paint and wants to attack the rim, you just see the way that Rudy Gobert defends the rim and sets a tone to just completely destroy whatever Miami wants to do on the drive. He had 2 pretty insane blocks, or maybe it was 1 and didn't get credited for the other one. But, his fourth quarter rim defense has been unbelievable all season long. And he's so good at making things difficult and defending without fouling. And it's just such a blessing and such a competitive advantage for this Timberwolves teams to know that, if a guy's barreling into the paint or gets past the first line of defense, it's not Karl Anthony Towns back there, defending the rim. And that's no shade at Karl at all. It's just, Karl's not the greatest rim protector, arguably in NBA history. Right. And the other big part of that is that it allows Karl to still be aggressive offensively because he doesn't have to worry about picking up fouls trying to defend the rim. And you saw, Karl was able to really impact the game. Had a great score on Jimmy late in the fourth. Had a great kind of over the head assist to a cutting Anthony Edwards. Had that really huge offensive rebound and then threw a lob up to Gobert to, I think, make it a 3-point game with a couple minutes to go. So that was huge. And then what more can you say about Anthony Edwards, right? Just the way that he's able to come up with some of these timely shots down the stretch of games was absolutely massive. And again, I think the Timberwolves depth too was a huge thing down the stretch of that fourth quarter. You see Jaden McDaniels foul out on, one of the dumber fouls you can pick up where you already have 2 guys right there that are way bigger than Tyler Hero. And you just shove Tyler Hero out of the way for no reason when you absolutely did not have to do that. I don't know if Tyler Hero said something to Jaden and Jaden kind of took it out on him on that or not, or what the deal was. But, Jaden was playing awesome defense on Tyler Hero in that fourth quarter before he fouled out. But like I said, with the depth, Jaden McDaniels has to go back to the bench fouling out with like 2.5 minutes left. And then you just plug and play Nickeil Alexander-Walker, right? And there aren't many teams in the NBA that have the luxury of, going from one elite perimeter defender that can, defend these, high octane scoring guards to go right to another guy off the bench that's able to do the same thing without really sacrificing a ton. And that's going to be huge, especially, if it's a matchup like this against the Heat or, another team that or the Mavs maybe, or a team that just has one of these super big, physical, strong ball handlers like Jimmy Butler, for example, tonight. Jaden, got switched onto him a couple of times. And things didn't necessarily go great, but the big thing there is like when you have a guy like Jimmy and it's kind of tiring Ant out having to guard Jimmy, and Ant doesn't really have it necessarily offensively like he did early in the game. The Timberwolves switched Kyle Anderson onto Jimmy Butler, and Kyle Anderson played phenomenal defense on Jimmy Butler, and that was something that kind of helped them throughout the entirety of that second half too. Just to kind of take some pressure off of those two defenders. And that's, I think, a thing just to kind of file away and keep in the back of your mind as the Timberwolves, approach some games here with some bigger and more physical wings and just players in general, that Kyle Anderson is really capable of defending those types of players and has done it pretty well so far this season. And, on nights when Jaden McDaniels needs a blow or is in foul trouble, or Ant, needs to be there offensively, or a guy's too big for Nikhil, that was really important. So I want to make sure that Kyle got his love for what he did off or defensively, maybe not just in that fourth quarter, but throughout the whole entire second half. And that was certainly important as the Timberwolves, kind of crawled back into this one and eventually won the game.
Well, Jim Pete on the broadcast actually called Kyle Anderson, or I should say Finch calls Kyle Anderson, kind of a slump buster. And you kind of saw that tonight. Do you see that as well? Just a guy that just can help change some momentum up. And is it the defense that he gives you, or is it just another crafty vet with that good awareness out on the court?
Yeah, I think he, just kind of gets stops at points when they really need him, or finds a way to get his hand on the ball for a deflection, or block a shot, or get a contested rebound, or, kind of bail the Timberwolves out at the end of the shot clock with some of these, weird, winding, awkward, unconventional, little hook shots or flip shots that he does in the middle of the floor. And I think all those things kind of add up over the course of a game, right? Where you might not really notice his impact quite as much. But then in those moments where it's like, oh, shoot, what are they going to do? And Kyle just happens to make a play once or twice that really, like you said, ends up springing them. And, for all the kind of trade speculation that people have thrown around, is Kyle Anderson's kind of really the only piece that they can move of any substance. I think it'd be foolish to ship him out in addition, or in exchange for really any type of offensive scoring, just because what he gives you defensively, I think is so much more important than anything else that they could add offensively, especially when you consider the way that, Ant and Carl and Mike Conley and Naz Reid are all playing right now. It's a tough thing, I think, to disrupt. So I'm really glad that, Kyle continues to play awesome defensively and produce just enough offensively as a scorer, in addition to his playmaking, to be a really positive player for this team.
Yeah, well said. Just real quick, 35th straight game with a three-pointer for Mike Conley, fourth longest streak in the NBA. He was 4 for 5 from three tonight. We talked about him Saturday night when he cleared his 6,000th assist for his career. How big was he tonight, though, specifically in those clutch moments when they needed someone other than Ant or Cat or Naz on the offensive side of the ball? Just real quick.
What was that number?
He was 35th,
how many games in a row?
35th straight game with a 3 for Conley.
So he's only got like 230 more to go until he breaks Steph Curry's record, which got snapped last night.
Oh, did it really? Okay.
Yeah. But, I think he's just so huge. It feels like every single time he just kind of senses that moment, especially in transition, of when to pull up for three. And I think he had the go-ahead three-pointer in transition that prompted a Heat timeout. And he just gets so fired up in those moments. And just to see the way that this team has embraced him and empowered him to be an offensive scorer, where he really wasn't empowered to do that in Utah quite as much. I think he's really, really enjoying it. You can tell with how much joy he's playing with, and with just how deadly he is from beyond the arc, and how smart of shots he takes. It's just such a nice value add for this Timberwolves team, and such a huge weapon, especially in the fourth quarter when defenses are already thinking about How are we going to defend the Gobert role? How are we going to defend Ant? How are we going to defend Carl? All those things. And it's just like, oh, shoot, there's Mike Conley. And just happens to keep making big play after big play. And it's so needed for this Timberwolves team.
Yeah, well said. Well said. And I mean, kind of like you mentioned too, that defense, man, stepping up in the second half, getting good steals, getting into the passing lanes, getting the tough rebounds. You said it, Rudy was an absolute monster tonight in the paint and around the rim. And then just some huge bench points tonight. The usual suspects tonight to rally back as well. Man, what a fun one tonight. Was that the game? Okay, what do we got? 24 games in the books. Some fun ones, man. We've had a lot of fun this season. The Celtics overtime thriller, a couple versus Golden State, the Nuggets game. Was this the best game of the season as far as just a pure entertainment standpoint? What do you think?
In terms of entertainment, like that fourth quarter was absolutely unreal. I still think that Celtics game probably clears it just because, it was earlier in the season. We didn't really know what to think of this team. I was at home, so there was that type of energy. But the Wolves have played some absolute banger games that have gone down to the wire in these back and forth affairs in Miami, especially. I thought that fourth quarter was as entertaining of a quarter as there's been in any NBA game that I've watched this entire season, regardless of it being the Wolves or not. You could tell both teams wanted that game so bad, and for pretty obvious reasons. And just the back and forth nature and how both teams never really flinched, right? They just stayed composed, continued running their stuff, getting the ball to the guys they wanted to get the ball to. And those guys kept making plays. And that's, exactly what you want to see if you're a fan, right? And so just a wildly entertaining game that, we're all grateful that the Timberwolves came out the other side. I still am kind of waiting to wake up for someone to pinch me that the Timberwolves are 20-5.
I think everybody is. Yeah, of course.
And, we're kind of living in this space between, sleep and awake, right? Where we're just kind of hallucinating a little bit, where you could, if someone told you were dreaming, you'd probably believe it. And if someone told you you're just groggy and barely awake, you probably believe that too. And I think we all kind of have this collective feeling. And, hey, I just hope Timberwolves fans keep celebrating every single win while they have them, because they have certainly suffered for such a long time. And for all these wins to just keep coming and coming and coming in the way that they have been, especially with all these come from behind wins where they just grind them down in the third quarter. And you just kind of see this Timberwolves team over time break the spirit of the other team. Is just been so much fun to watch. And it really does feel like a sustainable product that this team can keep putting out on the floor as long as they're able to stay mostly healthy, like they have so far this season.
Couple more on tonight's thriller in Miami, but first a quick word from our sponsors over at PrizePicks. Tonight's postcast brought to us by our friends over at PrizePicks. PrizePicks, guys, is without a doubt the most fun I've had playing daily fantasy, because you can win up to 25 times your money this basketball season. Why I love it, it's just so easy to play. All you got to do is select 2 or more players and pick more or less than their projected stats on any given night. Plus, PrizePicks now offers Apple Pay for quick and easy deposits into your account all season long. And with the PrizePicks reboot policy, your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. That makes PrizePicks the only daily fantasy platform around that offers you injury insurance to give you that extra peace of mind. Right now, go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use code LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. That's promo code LockedOnNBA at prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. 100% bonus match up to $100.
And then everyone should link their Discord, if they've got one, to their PrizePicks accounts once they create it, because they're doing Picksmas right now.
I like that.
Over on the Discord side, where they're giving out a ton of really cool promos and rewards every single day just for playing. So it's been really
great
fun
shout out
for me as a PrizePicks player to get in on that.
Just another reason to go check out PrizePicks. Again, prizepicks.com/LockedOn. All right, let's pick back up here. What's a win like this do for the confidence, for the psyche to go on the road this time, be down 17 against a tough Miami team when healthy, I think is one of the best in the NBA?
Yeah, I think it's important just because this Miami team has always been so together, and they've kind of been what the Timberwolves have been this year, where it's just like, doesn't matter what the score is, you just feel like you can't count them out because, they just grind you down and they never panic. And for the Timberwolves to be able to go toe to toe with a team like that has done it not only just for the first 24, 25 games, but to be able to, do it for 2, 3, 4 years now, like the Heat have, and to be able to go head to head with them and beat them in that fashion on the road, has to be huge for the Timberwolves psyche, right? And it probably feels great for Karl-Anthony Towns, right? He got beat up by Jimmy Butler in that first half, and Jimmy Butler certainly won that matchup. And then, Karl certainly won it in the second half, especially in the fourth quarter. Like Jimmy was guarding Karl, and Jimmy got the better of him, a few times for key scores. If it wasn't him, it was his teammates. And that's got to feel good for him. And so I think there, when you add in kind of that personal element to it, I know someone just said that, I'm glad that Jimmy stuff is behind us. Like, it is not behind us. Like Timberwolves players still care about that. And they might tell you that they don't, or Jimmy Butler might tell you that they don't. Well, Jimmy certainly doesn't, because he purposely left out the Timberwolves in his, media day thing. But there are still, that wound is open still, I think. And it's always teams like those two teams are always going to care if those guys are playing a little bit more about that matchup. And I think when you add the personal element to it, it certainly does mean more than just your average game.
Jim Pete mentioned on the broadcast, don't know if you caught it, by the way, man, the Wolves play-by-play and broadcast color guys, just phenomenal, dude. I just learned so much sitting down and just watching and listening to them talk about the game. But he mentioned if there was someone and something you'd love to see Anthony Edwards start to try and emulate in his game, it'd be Jimmy Butler's ability to get to the free throw line, where he's right now, he's fourth in the NBA in free throw attempts per game. I don't know. Does it feel like maybe he just doesn't get the same whistles a solidified star like Jimmy gets that's been in the league so long? Is that something that you just kind of got to grind your way through a few more seasons to get? I don't know. It kind of sounds ridiculous. I know that you're just hearing myself explain that out loud, but maybe some truth to it.
Yeah, I certainly think it's a great skill. And I think the thing that Jimmy does so well, arguably better than any player in the NBA, except for maybe Luka Doncic, is he's so methodical and under control about the way that he uses his strength to his advantage on the drive. Like, it's pretty rare that Jimmy just straight line drive, beats guys to the rim. And Jimmy's not the most athletic guy. I mean, I'm sure he'd be the first person to admit that. So he's kind of had to kind of learn that craft, if you will, of just kind of playing under control and using his strength without, being over, playing, I guess, out of control and really using your off arm. Like, he does such a good job of like using his shoulders without plowing people over. And he's obviously great at jump stopping, ball faking, attacking guys if they're out of position. Whereas I think, Ant is kind of a two-trick pony right now, in that he either is just a, straight line drive, or he does that Euro step. And when you do that Euro step, you don't really have the option of pump faking, right? You just have to go up. And I think, I think Ant's just got to learn that sometimes coming to a jump stop is the best thing for you, in that kind of gives you more options. You can always pass the ball out if, you get caught and the defense stays down, don't bite on the pump fake, those types of things. So I think that's probably the biggest thing for Ant to add to his repertoire if he really wants to become a guy that can consistently get to the line more often. Because I think the thing with Jimmy is, like, I wouldn't even call Jimmy like a grifter, in that, he's just like totally foul baiting and trying to trick the refs. He's, a lot of the fouls that Jimmy draws are like legitimate fouls. It's not like James Harden or Embiid where they're just flopping around all the time. And Jimmy does flop, I guess, occasionally, but most of the time it's because he gets guys up in the air. Guys just are out of position trying to guard him because he's so big and physical. And so I think sometimes slowing down a little bit if you're Ant, and using your physicality to your advantage, and, just playing a little bit more under control, coming to a jump stop, show a ball fake, those types of things, I think will really kind of help Ant if he wants to go on that, I guess, Jimmy Butler path, if you will, to drawing more free throws. So But I totally agree. It's a great shot by Jim Pete, and certainly one that makes sense considering, Ant's build.
32 on the night for Ant, just some absolute monster clutch, amazing shots along the way tonight. And you think about his game somehow getting better, adding another weapon or trait to his bag of tricks. And that's just, I mean, come on. That's just such a scary weapon with a few more years of polish like Jimmy has as well. All right, I got 2 more quick ones here before we wrap up. But first, a quick word from FanDuel. Quick reminder, tonight's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, check this out. New customers, you're getting $150 in bonus bets when you win just a $5 money line wager. That's $150 in bonus bets when you throw down just $5 on any money line wager. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, no better time to get in on all the action. The app, it's so easy to use, and they got everything you need. Money lines, parlays, prop bets, you name it, they got it. FanDuel's got everything you need to bet on the entire NBA season, and it's by far the easiest and simplest betting app to use. Go check it out for yourself. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon today. America's #1 sportsbook. FanDuel, official partner of the NBA. Boy, this was, remember, think all the way back to the beginning of the year. Gauntlet of a schedule coming out, those first 10, 12 games there in the mix. And then, you get to December. Toughest strength of schedule in December for the Wolves. But all of a sudden, I mean, they're cleaning up right now. Still got some tough ones on deck here. Sixers on Wednesday, Lakers, Kings. That's Joel Embiid, LeBron, De'Aaron Fox. 2 of those next 3 on the road as well. Just quick thoughts when you hear that stretch now, Sixers coming up first. After what you saw tonight, what's maybe the number one thing that maybe needs to be improved or continue to be an area of strength for this team?
I think it's the turnovers. That's something. I mean, the Lakers are a team that, are a really, strong defensive team. They play well in transition. They've got a lot of guys that can space the floor in transition and shoot threes. But between Reeves and LeBron and Davis, they've just got a lot of guys that are really good in transition. Cam Reddish too. And then the other thing for the Timberwolves is I think just staying out of foul trouble, the best they can, because, they've proven that when they've got all their guys on the floor, they're a really, really tough team to beat. And, when they can put all 5 guys on the floor like they did tonight in the fourth quarter, I mean, obviously we've talked about the Jaden to Nikhil trade-off a little bit, but, I'd just like to see more of that against a lot of these great teams and taking themselves out of a game for dumb fouls or, Carl being out of control offensively, which has happened a few times. Those types of things just can't happen if they want to stay competitive in all these games. And if they stay competitive, down the stretch, you got to really like their chances with the way they've played in the clutch. So I think those 2 things are the most important thing for me. I'm happy that my basketball party prediction from last week of going 3-0 in the Pacers,
Nice.
Heat, and Sixers game is very much alive. The other thing too for Timberwolves fans, I don't know if people were online much today, but Joel Embiid was questionable with a hamstring injury. He did end up playing tonight against the Bulls. Whether or not he finished that game or came out okay, I'm not sure, but that is obviously something to monitor as the Timberwolves get ready to go to Philly Wednesday. And then, they've obviously Philadelphia played in that East Coast game. I think it was on a Tuesday night and then came to Minneapolis on a Wednesday for a back-to-back. And the Timberwolves have that now. They've got to go from Miami to Philly and then from Philly back home. And they play the Lakers on the second end of a back-to-back. Both of those games are going to be on NBA TV, which will be kind of fun, I guess, as a pseudo national TV game. But it'll be really important for the Timberwolves to, I think, just, stay out of foul trouble, stop turning the ball over so the other team isn't running in transition and speeding them up. And the more they can play in the half court too, I think the better chance I think they'll have to win these games, especially both Wednesday and Thursday. If they can slow it down and kind of, maintain some of their energy and not have to run up and down in a game that, Philadelphia likes to do that quite a bit. So I think it'll be helpful on the scoreboard and, physically when you think about having to play 2 games in 28 hours or whatever it's going to be.
Yeah, you make some good points, but the problem with cleaning up the turnovers and starting fast is then they can't dig themselves in a big hole and make that dramatic, wild comeback like they did tonight. So it's like
maybe they'll just start slow,
poison,
and the
man.
Lakers will just make a ton of threes early on Thursday.
Right,
D'Lo will have 16 points in this first quarter, and then score 3 the rest of the game.
Yeah, TBJ revenge game coming up here.
Yeah, I think
the Lakers.
I'm really excited to see the Taurean Prince tribute video that I certainly think he deserves. I know this Timberwolves crowd loves Taurean Prince, so I hope he gets a nice warm reception. And then I think you'll see a pretty strong juxtaposition when D'Lo is announced back, but we'll see.
All right. I know you got to get out of here. You're playing in the Sacco Toilet Bowl. You need some help tonight. Philly up 17-10 going in the fourth quarter right now versus Seahawks. Just give us the quick 30-second update. Lay out the situation on the line for you tonight in fantasy football.
Yeah, so this was pretty big. Coming into the game, I needed DeAndre Swift to outscore DK Metcalf.
PPR, full point PPR, half point PPR?
Full point PPR.
I
basically needed Swift to just outscore DK Metcalf. The game was pretty much tied coming into this one. DeAndre Swift has 7.6 points. DK Metcalf has 1.8. I'm currently up by 8 points. So as long as we don't get, a DK Metcalf touchdown here on this drive or the rest of the fourth quarter, I should be okay. But
and what's on the line? What's on the line here?
I'm going to have to spend a whole weekend in an undesirable location of the winning player's choosing. He'll be able to consult the rest of the group. So right now, the early leaders in the clubhouse are like a small town in Canada or middle of nowhere, Iowa. So we'll see. But I was making some funny faces a little earlier in the show because DeAndre Swift got tackled by his own player at the 1 yard line, and then they pushed it in, which was rather tough.
That hurts.
But can't win them all. So just,
man, the evolution of fantasy football, man, it used to be just a fun little side game with your boys. We've taken things, right, as a fantasy football community to the next level, but we'll save that for another show. I digress. Wolves win their second this season versus the Heat. First one in game 2 of the season. No Jimmy Butler in that one tonight. A lot tougher, much more healthy squad for Miami, but the Wolves find a way to come back down 17 to win at 112-108. They move to 20-5 on the year. As always, huge shout out to everyone that joined us on the postcast tonight. Rest assured, we'll be back each and every game, same time, same place right here to break it all down. Quick reminder as well, go check out all of Jack's work on Twitter at JRBorman13. That's going to do it for us tonight, though. Next on deck, it is the Sixers Wednesday night. Join us again right here for the entire recap. And follow all our work over at the Locked On Sports Minnesota Network. And one more plug, if you haven't done so already, you got to go check out Ben Beacon over on the Locked On Wolves podcast as well. He's Jack Borman. I'm Luke Inman on Twitter at Luke_Spinman. Until next time, signing off.